Welcome to the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. Each week these idiots pair cocktails with comic books. You can find the cocktails, drinking game rules, and playlists on the blog at funnybooksandfirewater.com. While at funnybooksandfirewater.com, you can also find a drinking game rule to play while you listen to each episode. You can follow us at FirewaterCast on Twitter, and Funny Books and Firewater on Facebook and Instagram. This is episode 159, Akira, part of our motorcycle month.
I wanna rock!
And that's where I cut in right
We're
there.
gonna rock out with our cocks out!
No, that's not till Pride Month. We're not there
more
yet.
ladies on the show, they could jam out with their clams out.
There we go.
So, I don't know if we've had the discussion on the show, but we've been trying to figure out what the female equivalent of a cock block is, and I like clam jam personally.
I like clam jam. I've heard clam jam.
I like actually twat swat.
Beaver Dam?
Yeah.
the beaver
Dam.
Beaver Dam! Yes! Oh, that's amazing. Jason, I love you.
You're welcome.
So
Maybe we have had this conversation before. I don't remember.
I think we have.
Yeah.
But so I've spent most of yesterday and all of today watching the Star Wars YouTube live stream from Celebration with panels and a bunch of stuff. And I texted it earlier, but I can't go to Galaxy's Edge because I will become a resident.
Yeah, no, I would love that.
They
I'm
showed
worried about
off.
that too.
They showed off the if you've watched Clone Wars or Rebels, they showed off the animatronic for the first time, seeing him in live action anywhere, Hondo, and
Ooh.
it's Hondo. It's a real person. It's and Jim Cummings is doing his voice, and I can't say that I'm wet because I'm dehydrated from all the fluids that have come out of my body.
I came to.
He's just shooting like powdered milk right now.
So if we're talking about Star Wars,
Powdered blue milk.
What you're gonna be able to get?
if it's blue, you go see a doctor. But as we record this, the trailer for Rise of Skywalker came out yesterday, and
Are we recording?
Yeah, yes, we're 2 minutes in. So I got off Facebook. I log in to post stuff for like Funny Books and Cinema Queens and this kind of stuff, and my life's been a lot better since I decided to eschew social media. But apparently people are bitching about the new trailer, and honestly, I don't know what they're bitching about because I haven't seen it. But dude, how fucking amazing was that? Like, the scene when Leia hugs Rey, I fucking bawled like a baby.
And so, funny thing about that, because I watched part of the panel yesterday. I started it late, and then sometimes on YouTube when there's a live stream and the actual live part of it ends, it'll just cut the stream, and you have to wait till they upload it. But they were talking about how they put her in the movie. And they're like, we didn't want to do CG. And what J.J. Abrams was saying is they had a lot of footage that was cut from Force Awakens, and they were able to repurpose that footage to fit the story for the new movie to use her in it.
Yeah. And I was talking with Chris about this, is that, the year everyone died, the one death that really, really got, because David Bowie was a huge one, and we were all hanging out. Actually, you, me, Maya, me, and Jimmy, and Kat, and everyone, when we saw the news. Actually, it was the night of the Golden Globes.
Yep, it was the night of the Golden Globes.
And we stayed until like 3 a.m. watching David Bowie videos. That one hurt, but Carrie Fisher was the one that gutted me, because as much as everyone watched Star Wars as a kid, and I'm Luke, I'm Han, Princess Leia for me was my hero. And going forward in life, Carrie Fisher was, obviously she had her demons. She died of an overdose, she died drowning in moonlight, strangled by her own bra.
Yep.
But she was one of the first people to be fully open and honest about mental health issues and addiction and what she went through. And if you've not seen it, it's on HBO Go or whatever you have. Wishful Drinking was her one-woman show. And it's hilarious, it's heartfelt, it's heartbreaking. If you've not seen it, it's like an hour and a half. Definitely check it out. It's just fantastic. So the scene when, considering episode 9 was supposed to be her movie, because she was going to be the focal point of it, and the fact that she's not here for that.
And that makes sense, because Han was kind of the focal point for Force Awakens.
Exactly,
Luke was kind of the focal point for Last Jedi.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, the final trilogy of these 3 main characters. The fact that she's not with us just fucking sucks. And her mom died of a broken heart 3 days later. So it's, missing her is a big thing. But being able to see her finally give Ray that hug and Ray's crying. Like, I was driving down the road bawling like a baby. So don't do that when you're driving down the road, by the way. Don't watch YouTube videos.
Do you want me to edit out any illegal content from this episode?
No, because I was listening to it. I wasn't watching.
Oh, okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. So,
Okay.
we talk about,
and it's only illegal if you get caught.
yeah, and we talk about Chris getting high on Cinema Queen, so it's fun because he doesn't. He's a good Christian girl, so he just reads about getting high.
I was going to say, but we're not here to talk about Star Wars because I could probably record a whole podcast from the last 2 days worth of shit that I've seen.
I can record a whole podcast on that fucking trailer.
Yeah.
So anyway, Star Wars. There's a new version of the Tantive 4 Lego set coming out. That looks awesome.
Yeah, I don't even play the Star Wars miniatures game, but I want that fucking Executor. It's like as big as
2 months.
It's like as big as a table and costs $200, but I want it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm sick. This is going to be weird. But welcome to episode 159 of the Funny Books and Firewater podcast. I'm your sexy sounding host with the 900 number voice, Brian. I'm a sound designer based out of Southern California, and I'm doing some stuff for Lyric, and I might be doing some stuff for Netflix that I'm not allowed to talk about. So there's that. That's fun. I'm doing things in reverse order because you know what? Fuck it. I don't feel good. We're gonna make this work. The man in desperate need of an executor, we have Mr. Adam.
Yes, that's true. And Darth Vader sculpt from was it Celebration? They're doing that, yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend down there that's been trying to get it for me the last 2 days, and she gets it because she's there for work. Gets there and says that they've sold out in like the first 15 minutes of the floor opening.
I assume this is the same friend I know.
Yes.
Yep, editor-in-chief, playing cool. Hey guys, this is Adam. I the reviews editor for Big Show. Ooh. Sorry, we got Star Wars with Ray right now in my show me shit.
This episode is going to take forever.
We're not going to actually talk about this book. We're just going to do introductions for an hour.
We're going to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah. Reviews editor for Big Shiny Robot. Also figuring out stuff with Border Cell Podcast with Andy Wilson.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Also over at Cinema Queens, our brother, sister, wife.
Sister wife
podcast. Cinema Queens.
Sister fucker.
With Chris. Hey, Chris.
Wait, this isn't Game of Thrones.
Yeah. I'm your sister. Which we might be doing something kind of fun with during Pride Month. And you can also find me curating our grinder scruff and tights with a Z account.
Awesome. Also looking for love in all the wrong places, specifically the tights with a Z account. We have Mr. Maya.
Am I?
I don't know. I'm making shit up.
Well, you're a wrestler, so.
Hey, I'm Maya.
Fucker, deal with it.
Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Maya. That's MRMIAH, or Instagram, the Mr. Maya. You can also follow my cat on Twitter and Instagram at It's the Jonesy. And then if you're in Salt Lake, I'm kind of off and on getting back into wrestling. Check out UCW Zero, and if you want some good local wrestling or want to come see me do something, it's not as we record this. There's nothing set in stone as to what actually I'm doing, but come check it out.
See Maya in the leggings. Do you wear sexy leggings, Maya?
I usually wear like the biker short style types.
That might be sexy enough for me. I'm trying to decide. I'll think about it. Also, I have to put them in this order because otherwise the Batman laws that cover this podcast will break us down.
There you go.
So we have to start with our Hollywood elite, Mr. Jason.
God. Hi, yes, I'm Jason.
Hollywood.
Yeah. Writer in Los Angeles, temporarily working in the game capture department for a trailer house, but I am here to also give you your weekly WGA update that is about 3 weeks old by this point. So moments before the existing 43-year-old agreement between writers and agents was set to expire, in early April, the ATA came back to the table and asked for an extension that lasted officially until midnight this morning on April the 13th. The two sides met a few times this past week, but no resolution was actually met, and the new agency code of conduct went into effect. As of last night, writers were starting to send out letters to the agencies in a mass firing. So we are in uncharted territory as of right now.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's exciting.
I'm just excited for Ruin Your Life on TV season 2.
So, ruining his life, and the second that has to go in the Batman order, we have Mr. Todd. I don't know why I said you're ruining your life, but you can make something up.
Well, I've got a child now, so some people would say that ruins your life. So far, it's been pretty great.
Yeah.
She sleeps a lot, eats a lot, drinks, and she lets you know when she's not happy, and everything revolves around her. It's like something you want to strive for, but she just starts that way.
Yeah, it's true.
So everything starts out hunky-dory great, and does it go downhill from there?
Yeah.
No. So, but yeah, I'm Todd. You can find me here on Funny Books and Firewater. Sometimes we do another one called English Class Hooligans.
Yeah, we gotta get our shit together.
About as frequent as Bored as Hell?
At this point in time, yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. But that's still something we want to do.
It's
Life!
whatever. Life gets the better of you.
Yeah, so that's where we're at.
Okay. Cool. So this week we are doing Akira or Akira or Akira. What do they call it in the anime?
Akira.
Akira. Okay.
Like the car?
Yeah, that's anyway. So this is part of our motorcycle month. Mr. Todd, do you want to give us a quick little heads up as to what this book is?
So I've been thinking about this. I've got a niece named Marissa who's 20 and has never heard of this. So I've had to talk about it. I know. I mean, she went to Lagoon to check out cute boys when she was younger.
I did that too.
She is. Good for you.
Yeah.
So
they're all in tank tops. It's cute.
yeah, so this is a Japanese-based story of a dystopian future that's set in present day about a bunch of punk kids in a biker gang that come across a military program that takes other young kids to give them superpowers, and their friend gets caught up in it. He kind of gets infected, or he takes pills for it, and then wackiness ensues because the military wants him back and people are running away. And the title of the book is about a character you see next to nothing of.
Yeah,
That's also true.
The character's alluded to, but you never actually see.
I would assume the character shows up later.
It does, yeah.
Because what is
It does, yes.
6 volumes?
Yeah.
Is the whole thing?
Yeah. Well, have you not seen the anime?
No.
You've never seen the anime, really?
Really?
No, I'm lying to you. Of course.
Are you really?
No, I haven't seen it.
We actually we talked about that yesterday. You even said like you wanted to maybe watch it before we recorded, but
Yeah, I felt
time
it.
constraints. So
Here's the thing: you need to watch that movie at least twice. Because like I watched it once, I thought, okay, whatever, and then watched the second time, I was like,
Tell me what I need
I
to
get
do.
it now.
So actually, I want to go watch it again because when the Blu-ray came out, they relocalized it and used new voice actors for the English dub.
Mhm.
Because in the original one, the guy who did the voice of Leonardo from Ninja Turtles, the cartoon, did the voice of Kaneda. And apparently the new one's, it's better localized and better voice actors. The anime is the grandfather of all anime. It kind of set the bar for decades even.
Mm-hmm.
It's gorgeous. It's got great cinematography. It's batshit insane and makes no sense. So,
What's also fascinating with this, and Game of Thrones is in a similar camp, is this first started coming out in 1984.
mm-hmm.
The series didn't end until the 90s, but the movie came out in the 80s, and the guy who wrote and made the comic, made the movie.
Oh, really?
So the movie is basically the first part and the last part. And
Yeah,
everything in
it
between.
combines the yeah.
So but all the ending is really flushed. The middle is flushed out, and the things that are slightly touched on in the movie that makes you go, "What?" is a bit more spelt out. But
Yeah, there's a lot of missing pieces
Yeah.
in the anime.
the what's the adaptation? Is the movie the adaptation of the comic? The comic started
Yes.
first, but there was no ending
This
till
is the
years
manga?
after the movie. Yes. And then at what point does it flip over and then the manga becomes the adaptation of the movie? But it's the same creator, same writer.
Yeah.
But it's ending in the same place, started in the same place, but it's all gooey in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gooey in the middle.
I know.
It's been a while. That's so nice. So
So, yeah. But no, it's fascinating.
Okay. Anyway, So we're going to need some drinking game rules for this book. So we will start with Mr. Jason.
Kind of a dick is the title of my drinking game rule, and every time Kaneda is a dick, take a drink.
Mine is also a Canada joke reference. Mine is "Oh Canada," which is every time they say the name Canada, spelled Kaneda, take a drink. Mr. Adam, what is yours?
So mine's called Simadana. Every time someone yells or screams, take a drink.
Okay. Mr. Todd.
Mine are rushing lines. Every time you see a panel where there's a lot of lines that
Like they're running.
they're running or something moving fast and quickly, take a drink.
We're gonna kill everyone.
Okay. Well, Mr. Maya, speaking of killing everyone, what is your drinking game rule?
So mine's called Pill Poppers. Anytime that there is a visual or spoken reference to pills, and fuck you all once per panel.
Once per panel. Wow, you're just being evil.
Speaking of evil, this drink is evil. I'm pouring more.
Isn't it amazing?
It's amazing, though. Yeah, I hate tequila, so...
Well, Todd, what is the Myification for this book?
This is fucking weird.
That's exactly what I was thinking, honestly.
Speaking of fucking weird, let's jump into votes as to whether or not we think that it is worth you, our dear listeners, hard-earned time, money, and effort to hunt this book down and give it a read. Mr. Adam.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Jason.
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes.
Mr. Maya.
Sure.
And I'm staying with it, yes. Well, so you have drinking games. You have everyone saying you should read this book, but you're going to need some music to put on in the background. So, Mr. Maya, what is your song for the playlist?
Sandstorm by Darude.
Okay. Mr. Adam.
I saw him spin that live.
Really?
I went to a rave in California, yeah. A long-ass time ago. Mine is Psycho by System of a Down.
Okay. Mine is A Real Hero by Electric Youth. Most famously probably known from the soundtrack of the movie Drive, FYI, in case you're trying to remember.
That movie is perfect.
Yes, it is. That movie is awesome. And Mr. Jason.
Eclipse by Pink Floyd.
Cool. And Mr. Todd.
Fist of the Year by Skrillex.
Fist or first?
I think it's First of the Year.
Okay. We'll find out, I guess. Okay.
Todd's on his third drink, so...
He's on his third drink. I'm on cold medication. This is just going to be weird. Actually, this is kind of perfect for this book, to be honest with you. We're all a little wacky and bizarre.
Yeah.
So you have music, you have the votes that say yes, you have drinking games, but you need, before we let you loose to go read this book, and we all recommend that you should, we need some cocktails. So, Mr. Adam, what is your cocktail?
So mine is called Fuck Up My Head. Kind of a boozy, more boozy take on the pina colada. You take 1 ounce of dark rum, 1 ounce of amaretto, 2 ounces of pineapple juice, 1 ounce of coconut cream, and a bunch of ice. You blend that all together until it's nice and slushy and delicious. You pour it in a hurricane glass, and then you float 2 ounces of 151 on top.
Okay.
And then garnish with a pineapple
So if you drink that using our drinking rules, you will die.
You will die, yes. But yeah, it seems kind of fun. You know, we've done some pina coladas, but this one's even boozier. So
Okay. Mine is called the A-Bomb, which makes sense in the course of this book. It is 1/3 a shot of Bailey's Irish Cream, 1/3 a shot of Kahlua, 1/3 a shot of vodka, 1/3 a shot of Tia Marie. You're going to stir all those ingredients over ice and then strain into a chilled cocktail glass. Mr. Jason, what is your cocktail?
Mine is called the Tokyo Mule. Take 1.5 ounces of vodka, 1 ounce of unfiltered sake, 3/4 ounces of spicy ginger syrup, and 4 ounces of sparkling water. Or you could replace the last 2 ingredients with maybe 4.5 ounces of ginger beer if you like. Then half a cucumber and half a lime. Add your liquid ingredients into a copper mug over ice, and then use a squeezer to get the juice out of the cucumber and lime, and stir to enjoy.
Okay, that sounds actually pretty darn tasty. Mr. Todd, do you have a cocktail?
I do. So I lifted this from Distinguished Eric's YouTube channel. He does a bunch of different cocktails, and it's actually a Game of Thrones themed, but it was so awesome I'm going with it. And it's called the Mance Raider. So what it is 1.5 ounces of tequila, 1/2 ounce of mezcal, 1/2 ounce of an orange liqueur, Cointreau would be nice, and 1/2 ounce of the sweet vermouth. And you want to go ahead and put in 2 dashes of an Angostura bitter, 2 dashes of an orange bitter, and then you want to take a rind of a lime and squeeze that over the top of it. and then you're going to put that in. You're going to stir it, put it in a lowball glass with an ice cube, sip and enjoy. It's a very booze front drink, and it makes no apologies, and it's delicious.
It is.
And how many of you had?
About an inch.
About an inch.
So like an eighth of me.
Shit, I don't hold it. I don't hold it half for no one.
Okay, Mr. Maya, did we get your cocktail?
You did not.
Hey, can we have your cocktail?
You may.
Okay. Would you like to share it with us?
Proceed.
Yeah, so mine's called the Olympic Torch, for reasons you'll hear when we're talking about the book. It's 1 ounce of Camarena Raspado tequila, 2 dashes of classic bitters, a half ounce of spiced orange syrup, 2 ounces of brut champagne, a half ounce of lime juice, and an optional orange twist. To top it with, the instructions are to mix the tequila, bitters, syrup, and lime juice over ice in a cocktail shaker. Shake the shit out of it, strain it into a champagne glass with the champagne, and then top it with the orange twist.
Cool. Awesome. That's everybody, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Cool. Well, then we're going to take a brief break while you guys can go pause the podcast and go give it a read, and we'll have a little ad from one of our sister brother podcasts. I believe this week or month it's the Night Hawks podcast. So yeah, I guess, is there any forewarnings or previous warnings before people get into this book that we should give people heads up about?
Yes, there is one incident of sexual assault. It's very quick and completely inconsequential to the story or the characters, but it does happen.
Okay, valid point.
Yeah.
Anything else?
You should totally read this book on acid.
Did that work for you?
No, I didn't on acid, so.
Okay.
Sure. Then how do you know they should read it on acid?
Eddie told me.
Moving on. So we'll take a brief break, and then when we get back, we will spoil the living shit out of it, so you have been forewarned.
While we take a break, here is a message from one of our fellow Hello Sweetie Network podcasts.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt.
And I'm Trevor. We're the co-hosts of the Nighthawks podcast, a movie podcast for people who like to stay up late.
We've just joined the Hello Sweetie Podcast Network, expanding our podcast empire and bringing the world to its knees.
Take a seat in the Nighthawks diner with us. We're going to talk to you about movies.
We've got new movies, old movies, movies we love, movies nobody loves.
You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, and at nighthawkspodcast.com.
Hey, that was pretty good. Do you think they'll listen?
The good ones always do.
Stolen from Wikipedia, now performed as a beat poetry jam.
Nope.
With interpretive dance.
With interpretive dance. The interpretive dance will be done by Mr. Maya. Just trust us that that's what's happening.
If you want to see it,
in his wrestling outfit.
If you really want to see it, you can subscribe to my Patreon.
I'd pay $5.
I'd pay money for that. I think you really should start a Patreon for that.
Interpretive dance of many things.
Interpretive dance of the summaries of our comic books.
Yes.
Onlyfans.com.
This reminds me of the landlord from Big Lebowski.
Yes.
Okay. Maya, are you ready?
I'm not ready.
You're interpretive dancing. Are you ready?
Trust us,
Sure.
he is.
There we go.
Okay.
I'm ready and naked.
Okay, good. Mr. Jason, are you ready and naked as well?
Let's go with yes.
Why don't you go ahead with the summary?
All right. So the manga of Akira starts with establishing the state of Neo-Tokyo by describing the apparent nuclear explosion on December 6, 1992, which destroyed the previous Tokyo and started World War III. The story fast forwards to 2030, where the new metropolis called Neo-Tokyo has been built on an artificial island in Tokyo Bay, gripped by anti-government terrorism and gang violence. While riding in the ruins of old Tokyo, Tetsuo, a member of the motorcycle gang led by Kaneda, is injured when his bike explodes after Takashi, which is an Esper, a psychic child with wizened features, blocks his path. This incident awakens some psychic powers in Tetsuo, attracting the attention of a secret government project directed by a colonel. These increasing powers unhinge Tetsuyo's mind, exacerbating his inferiority complex about Kaneda and leading him to assume leadership of a rival clown gang. Meanwhile, Kaneda becomes involved with a woman named Kei, a member of the resistance organization which stages terrorist attacks against the government. The resistance, led by Kei's brother Ryu and opposition parliament leader Nezu, gets wind of the Colonel's project and a mysterious figure connected with it known as Akira. They hope to use this leaked information and try to restrict Kaneda's movements after he becomes too involved with their activities. However, when Tetsuo and the clowns begin a violent citywide turf war, Kaneda instigates a counterattack that unites all of Neo-Tokyo's biker gangs against Tetsuo. The clowns are easily defeated, but Tetsuo is nearly invincible because of his powers. Tetsuo kills Yamagata, who's a high schooler in this gang led by Kaneda, and he... something cut off. Okay. So he kills Yamagata and survives being shot by Kaneda after taking this strange medical capsule that the government was trying to get him to take. So the Colonel arrives with these powerful drugs that are needed to suppress Tetsuo's violent headaches, and they extend him an offer to join the project.
Okay.
It's very convoluted. Yeah.
But that's pretty straightforward explanation of what happens in this.
So just a couple of things happen in this.
Yeah. Just a few things in this small volume.
I will say, though, that...
Of 360
exactly.
pages.
It is that long, but it is... I mean, I don't know how you guys found it. A pretty quick read.
I agree.
Yeah. Not only because it is broken up in a lot of panels that don't have a whole lot of dialogue, but there is a lot of forward momentum to the plot.
Yes. I find manga in general pretty easy to read and pretty quick to read, to be honest with you. Maybe that's just me, but like I've always found that that's a pretty fast read for me, and this didn't necessarily change anything on that. But
also anyone kind of intimidated by manga because it does read right to left, back to front kind of thing. Most versions of this, aside from the fancy one that Todd has, is printed like a normal comic book. So if you are kind of like, I kind of want to get into this, but I'm not used to the whole manga thing. Honestly, after 10 minutes reading a traditional manga, like I'm fine with it. But you can pick it up and read it how you would normally enjoy a graphic novel. So don't worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think 10 minutes is actually more than you really need. Normally it just takes me like a page or two and then you're good to go. But, it's how it goes. Well, cool. Who has some thoughts they're just desperate to get off their chests on this one? Don't all jump in once.
It's so this was so. Remember way back in the day, it was like you had like the stupid like little subscriptions you can get where like you paid $10 for the first movie and then it was like $20 a month and they'd ship you random shit. Like the Columbia House. Yeah. They did one for anime back when I was a teenager, and the first one you got, the one that hooked you in, was Akira.
Uh-huh.
And so that was the first anime I'd ever seen aside from like Voltron or the stuff you saw as a kid. So it was kind of my introduction to this kind of hyper realistic, violent Japanese animation, which I didn't know what it was, and that kind of kicked me off into liking other stuff like Ghost in the Shell and Your Name and other things that have come out. As I mentioned at the beginning, the movie makes no sense. The movie is batshit insane, but it's absolutely gorgeous, and everything about it has set a standard for anime for the last, almost 30 years, if not more than that. And I've always wanted to read the actual books about it, but I remember when I was a kid, I went to Barnes & Noble, and I was like, oh shit, there's 6 in this series. I'll never get through that. And so the fact we got to read this week was really incredible for me because I've always wanted to know the story behind it. And I like the fact that even though this does go off the rails and is kind of insane, it makes a shit ton more sense than the anime. So
yes, it does.
Yeah, so it kind of explains things more. And as Todd mentioned, the guy who made this wrote the anime, and so it kind of combines ideas from book 1 and 6. I really want to see what's in between, though, because that's like the story I've never gotten, and that's the story I want to see and find out, who Akira is, more what's going on with Tetsuo. And I will say the anime does a fantastic job of actually bringing these characters to life because they look exactly like their comic counterparts. Mm-hmm. But no, it's a fun read. It is really fast. I finished up today actually at Barnes & Noble. I was drinking some coffee, and I tore through like 200 pages in less than an hour. So it is big, it's thick, and it's heavy, but at the same time,
that's what she said.
I know, right?
I was gonna say it, and I chose not to.
But no, this is a great book. It is weird. It's not self-contained at all, because obviously this is setting up this new universe and telling a story of where we're going to go. But I definitely want to pick up the rest and see where the story goes.
Cool. Mr. Todd, what are your thoughts?
So, hold on here. Reading the movie as well, because for me the movie is so much tied into this material, this was one of the first animes I ever saw, and it was such a mind fuck. You just watch the end of it, and the ending of the movie is
bizarre,
obscure, and a bit existential. Extremely existential.
A bit.
And it was just one of the things that just kind of stayed with you. I remember watching this in the basement of your house, Brian. Do you?
Yeah.
And
we had a 100-inch TV screen, which back in the day was a big deal.
It was a big deal. I love that place.
Yeah.
But it stayed with you as you were watching this and what's going forth. And what you have are these physically, they're teenagers, so they've yet to have physical full maturity. Then you've got these other characters going on with Takashi and some others, and they still look like they're wizened little kids. And they look like miniature old people, but yet they still have they're still children.
Mm-hmm.
They're still children, and they have these amazing powers, and they are children. And then you've got this biker gang of misfits, and they're dealing drugs and their whatnot, and there's all this angst going on, and you have Tetsuo, who isn't the leader, and he's frustrated by this, and this event comes forward, and he is getting more powers and whatnot. He's like, well, I'm going to be the leader now, aren't I awesome? And it's missing the points of what leadership is. Mm-hmm. It's all about me. Aren't I awesome? I have these powers now, bow before me, and leadership's not about that. And for me, a little bit watching is the story of humanity. I really see this corresponds to Childhood's End by Heinlein. Mm-hmm. Did he write that one? Or was that Clark? Arthur C. Clarke.
Nerd.
Wrote Childhood's End. And that was another story of humanity making the next evolutionary jump and leaving the Earth behind. And as you watch this, it's kind of like the same story through a Japanese focal lens. You got this angst, you have this bomb that went off, and such a cultural scar in the Japanese culture. And this thing just starts off as you're just seeing this blast. At the very beginning, it's just like you open the first page and you're like, and Tokyo's destroyed. And then it lists all these other cities, like World War III is happening 38 years later. Now here we are today, and we're in the ragged ashes. And it is modern, but it's kind of a pale form of what it once was, because all of that was scraped away, and people are more left to themselves because the ravages of World War III. So as you're watching this, it's this tale of, is humanity growing up yet or not, or is humanity still the small child throwing this tantrum? And are they discovering, like, oh, I got keys to dad's sports car, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to fuck it up. And that's kind of what Akira is.
And I also see it as the whole story almost like as a metaphor for adolescence, because this bomb goes off, which we can say is puberty. And all of a sudden, everything's changing. You're coming into your own. You've got this new identity going on. You've got these new thoughts in your head, and you're becoming independent. And you don't know how to use it. You don't know what to do with that, and so you lash out and you act like an asshole because let's face it, teenagers are assholes. And you're not sure where to go in life. And eventually, you hopefully you mature and become an adult and, do your own thing. But much like Tetsuo is, like, he's taking advantage of what he has, and he's using these new powers to do what he wants. And I think a lot of us, when we go through adolescence, we do the same thing. We're little assholes, and we're trying to be our own and be independent, but we don't know how to do it. It's like watching a little kid learn how to cuss. Like, they just throw things out there, not knowing how to use it properly, and they look like an idiot because they're just not sure how to handle that newfound power.
Mm-hmm. I kind of thought of it in a way of, like, what if Superman was a dick? When he's growing up and discovering these powers.
Which is what, Brightburn? Is that the movie?
Yeah. Is it James Gunn?
James Gunn produced it, yeah.
Or produced it, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm tired. For me, I'd always heard of Akira. I'd never read it. I'd never watched it, as we discussed earlier. I knew absolutely nothing about it other than the main characters. I didn't even know they were kids. I thought had always thought they were adults. Rode motorcycles. Like, that's all I knew.
Well, they get into a bar pretty easy, so
yeah.
Obviously, Tokyo doesn't care about the age limit.
No. And the reason I just kind of said sure, like, I didn't hate it. I liked it quite a bit, but I didn't love it. Just because, for me, it went up and down so much. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, we're going to build to this, and then come back down. And then we're going to build to this, and then come back down. And, like, for me, it was almost like a roller coaster reading it. Like, I was tired by the time I finished reading it, and not just because it was long, just because it was like, okay, we're doing this, and they're running from the government, and then come down, and then they're fighting Tetsuo, and then coming down, and then I was like, this is exhausting.
And see, actually, I almost wish I knew Japanese, because I would love to read it in the actual Japanese, because it feels like the translation is almost like the difference between watching anime subtitled
and watching
it dubbed. It feels like it's a dubbed book.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see kind of how it was, in the original language, because there's lots of parts that kind of just seem like, it's
like
off.
Like they seem like they're there and don't quite belong, but yeah. And was it Kaneda
The movie says Canada.
Was it him that his
Kaneda
girlfriend or whatever was the school nurse hooking him up with pills? He's like, hey, I'm pregnant. And he's like, cool, can I watch?
Yeah.
I'm like, you're a fucking asshole.
He's a much bigger asshole in the book than he's in the movie.
Yep.
That's saying something.
In the movie, you root for him, but in the book, you're like, dude, fuck this guy.
Yeah, I'm like, is he supposed to be the main character that I'm supposed to like? Because I don't like either of the main characters.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, talking about the movie for a second, I don't know if anybody else had this feeling, but when I've watched the movie, I've always felt like at one point in time, I'll always feel like, oh, I understand this now, and then it'll keep going for another 5 seconds, and I'm like, nope, I don't get it anymore. Like I love it, but it's confusing as all hell. And like just when you start to think you understand, like I think specifically, and it's not in this book, but it is in the movie, of the giant figures bleeding milk. You're like,
yeah,
I think I understand what this means. But then it continues on, and then you're like, maybe I don't understand what this means.
Yeah, toward the end of the anime,
so.
when Tetsuyo's trying and unable to control his powers, is definitely when it
goes batshit crazy.
A little, yeah. Especially in the stadium and after finding Akira, and yeah. But going back to, I think a couple of you guys have talked about the relationship between power and using it responsibly and that sort of stuff, and I think I mentioned this to Todd and Brian a couple of weeks ago. Something I've always been struck by is the relationship that the U.S. and Japan have both used radiation or nuclear energy in their stories differently. For example, in our country, obviously, we show energy blast or radiation to somehow create superheroes. But in Japan, it creates a monster of devastating power like Godzilla or Akira. And obviously they have a very different relationship to it because we dropped 2 bombs on them. And you can see that very unique perspective on that, specifically at the end of the anime, in which Tetsuyo becomes this grotesque creature of uncontrollable destruction.
Spoiler. I'm kidding.
And the and the idea that there are people who either want to control it or try to control it is all just a giant folly. I've always appreciated that perspective.
Well, I think the thing that I always took away from it too was it was before 9/11. It was always interesting that you would see these Japanese films and they would have this sort of tie into the atomic bomb or whatnot, and then like post 9/11, I think you see that a little bit in our culture as well. Like you see films that sort of have references in some way or another to the Twin Towers and things like that. You know what I mean? Which is kind of interesting. So like it's you can see like this cultural scar that takes on a very large life.
Well, actually, randomly talking about 9/11, Twin Towers is when the first Spider-Man came out, the initial trailer had him catching these robbers escaping in a helicopter, caught in a web in between the Twin Towers.
Yeah, they had to cut it out.
Yeah, they cut it out. And the first poster was Spider-Man peering around a building, and in his eyes, you could see a reflection of the Twin Towers as well. And when 9/11 happened, they scrapped all those. They reprinted them without that. Mm-hmm. I have that poster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's in storage right now, and so I don't. It may not be worth anything. Who knows? But it was interesting to see, as you mentioned, how much that one day has changed our lives, and obviously it was a big deal. But how it changed pop culture and changed entertainment and art in ways that we don't even think about. And I worked back then, and we had to go through, and there were a ton of CDs and movies had pictures on them, and we had to pull them all and send them back because it was just this horrible day, of course, but it was just. It was a really surreal moment and we've got high school don't even know what that is, nor weren't there.
And what's interesting about it is the age of these characters are all quite a bit younger than the event that started this book. So much like 9/11, you have everyone in high school. People signing up for the military today were not alive when 9/11 happened. Mm-hmm. And these kids here were not alive due to that major event that so shaped severely everything going on. And for them, it's just the way it always is and always has been. Mm-hmm. And they don't see anything from that there. And I do find it's like taking these pills. The colonel's going to take these pills. We can control it. And yet it preserves the adolescence, and yet they're getting old. So it stops progress.
So I actually had a question because you've read the whole thing, right, Todd?
I have not read the entire.
You have not? Okay.
No.
You just own the badass edition, so.
Have you read more than the first volume?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can answer my question. Was the site of the Olympics more of a smokescreen just to have a secret base, or did the colonel decide to put his secret base on the side of the Olympics because he knew no one would be...
Read the book.
Okay. So it does get answered.
So looking at that, with the Olympics and whatnot, and even I think I commented on this on a previous show, is in Neo Tokyo here, they're getting ready to host the 2020 Olympics. And that's actually...
Which is actually where the 2020 Olympics are actually in Tokyo.
Tokyo.
And I thought I saw somewhere that they were doing Akira, advertisements.
Yeah.
Or banners.
They've been painting them.
Murals or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're with all the construction. They're hiding the construction with these walls.
Yeah.
And on the walls, they have painted Akira things covering it up. Just kind of as a nod of going, yeah, there's totally that reference.
Yeah, in the manga, it's 2030. In the anime, it's 2020.
I don't like it. They changed the book.
But the guy who wrote it, who cares?
One thing that the writer and artist of the manga mentioned is that it's largely a story about marginal members of society trying to find their own way. And I think that's definitely strongly portrayed in both Kaneda and Kei as literally kids who are swept up in this political movement to try to stop something terrible from happening, one for very personal reason and one for more political reasons.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other thoughts they want to bring up?
Well, I'm also, again, we're talking about the anime a lot. I'm interested to see what they do with the live action reboot they're kind of doing with this, because Taika Waititi is directing, which after Thor Ragnarok and what he did with, Flight of the Conchords, what we do in the Shadows, I have full faith in him. But they're really changing up the story a lot. So Kaneda is not in the microphone. He owns a bar. Tetsuo is his brother. And it takes place in Neo Manhattan after New York City was destroyed by, atomic bomb. Or I think we find out Akira was the one behind everything. This is the thing that this movie's been in pre-production for years. It's the one that was never supposed to happen.
Has it bounced around a couple of studios too?
Studios, directors, everything else you can possibly imagine. It's almost like the Gambit movie.
Is it still going to be Manhattan? Because I know he said that it's definitely going to have an Asian cast.
It might be an Asian cast, but it takes place in Neo Manhattan.
Okay.
That's like the official synopsis put out a couple months ago. But again, it's Taika Waititi. Yeah. I have a lot of faith in him, so I'm hoping it'll be good. But at the same time, it's got some big boots to fill.
Yeah.
So
sounds a little bit familiar. And I enjoy Taika too, but you've got Lindelof doing a bit of a reimagining of Watchmen, and It's keeping the title, but it's making a whole bunch of changes going on.
Oh, for HBO.
For HBO, yeah. And it's...
Well, from my understanding is it's not adapting Watchmen. It's just more set in that universe.
Yeah.
But calling it Watchmen.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the 5 people on Earth who actually love that movie, so...
I like the movie Watchmen, I just don't like Lindelof. Where was I going with this? Well, what's interesting with that, it's a true adaptation. It's taking the tone, and that'll be an interesting thing to see. And I get calling it Akira because it is such a touchstone, but at the same time, I mean, if it's trying to just like we're a different thing, calling it that, I mean, just call it a different thing.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be the same story where Tetsuo, eventually develops these powers and goes on a rampage. It'll be interesting to see, though, if they... I'm hoping they don't do almost like a remake of the movie. I want to see them tie together more of what we get in the manga, or manga, I would say it, and kind of tell the story we haven't seen. Because, I haven't read more than this first volume. I want to read more, but I know there's layers and layers and mountains of content and plot I don't know. Because, when you make a 90-minute movie, you have to gloss over a bunch of that. So...
Makes you want to give this to HBO and just say,
"Oh yeah, do it's anything with Harry Potter. Have HBO make a fucking Harry Potter series. Spend each season's a year. You could do a lot with that." So,
one more thing I do want to say is, it's hard to not get caught up in talking about how monumental the work was in terms of introducing a cyberpunk political story that resonated with a lot of people. I do want to point out that it treats its female characters pretty poorly. As Maya mentioned, the first female character that's introduced is Kaneda's sort of drug hookup and sort of girlfriend. And he just flippantly reacts to her news of being pregnant and just sort of bails on her at the next page. And then, as we mentioned before the break, when Kaneda meets Kei and they have to hide away somewhere, he forces himself on top of her and then puts his hands under her shirt. I mean, it's used as a ploy to get the gun from her so he can get out on his own, but it's probably the shittiest way that he could have done that. And then, in later volumes, apparently they do develop a romantic relationship, so I'm curious to see how that is handled. But even one of the Espers, one of the sort of kids with wizened features, is a girl, but she is the only one confined to a bed and seems to be the most fragile. So it's interesting that it's the story of all these incredibly powerful things, and yet all of the women seem to be put in the worst possible situations.
Yeah. That's a valid point. So this is written and illustrated by the same person, correct? Okay. So we'll do. Okay. So for our grades for self-contained, what is your grade, Mr. Jason?
F. Okay. It's the beginning of a much larger story and only ends on a cliffhanger.
Okay, Mr. Todd.
Yeah, it's an F.
Okay, Maya.
F.
I'll go with an F. Mr. Adam.
F as well. So
okay, we're all F'd it.
Okay. Good. For writing, what is the writer's name?
Katsuhiro Otomo.
Okay. I'm not going to pretend I can pronounce that because I will just butcher it. Okay, what is your grade for writing, Mr. Jason?
A-. It's a fantastic book, but the sexual assault and female characters aside, it is still a classic.
Okay. Mr. Todd.
I want to give it an A. There is some shortcomings, as Jason has pointed out, but the singular vision and the epic scope of it is phenomenal.
Mr. Adam.
I'm going to go with a B. Everything Jason and Todd said is true. This is a fantastically written book. It does a great job of world building and setting this up in a place that's familiarly unknown. But as I said before, I really wish I could read Japanese because I feel like there's something missing in the translation. And that's not really the fault of the writer, but it kind of feels like that there's something kind of off. So again, it feels like an English dub of a Japanese anime.
Okay. Mr. Maya.
I'm at a B for the same reasons that Adam just gave.
Okay. And I'm at a A-. I really enjoy it. It does have slight shortcomings. But other than that, I think it's very well done. So then for art, what is your grade, Mr. Todd?
Oh, it's an A.
Okay.
So it's the same guy that did the pencils and the ink, and it's epic. And some panels are crazy detailed, and sometimes the backgrounds are much lighter as it's going through. But the ability to have like the movement and the rushing on a static page is fantastic.
Okay. Mr. Adam.
I'm going to go with an A as well. You know, the one thing that kind of struck me with this book is that it is black and white, but it seems vibrant. Like there's a life to it, and that's, you know, we can look at other famous comics that are black and white, like Walking Dead, that as good as it is, doesn't have that sense of life. And it was just really interesting to read through this book and, you know, watch it almost come to color in your mind. And, you know, it's playing out this movie in your head that whether or not you've seen the anime, it still flows. And as Todd said, it makes this feeling of motion with like the motorcycles and the action. And it's a really hard concept to grasp until you've read it, but it really stands out, and it's some of the best art I've seen.
Cool. Mr. Maya.
Yeah, I'm at an A-. You know, everything was drawn beautifully, you know, that's been mentioned before, like the action and everything. But for me, what really did it was the detail on the different subjects and how they looked all withered and kind of...
And the titties.
Yeah, and that too. But yeah, just the amount of detail in some of the pages in this book is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Jason.
I'm an A as well. I mean, it's got really good, distinct character designs, kinetic action and reactions, a nice sort of realistic cyberpunk aesthetic, which isn't too futuristic or outlandish. It's still pretty dirty and harsh, and depicts a world closer to our own than we'd like to admit, probably.
Yeah, cool. And I'm also going to go with an A. I don't have anything else special to add. Okay, so for overall...
Comment on
what?
The art really seems to avoid the cliche.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some things like I'm going stylized or over stylized or things like that. Sometimes it can be a bit like cliche, or there's real life.
There's this
type of video.
Yeah.
And it avoids all of that. It just navigates it beautifully.
Well, and it's also interesting considering that, like, sometimes you read these classic books and they inspired so much work that they weren't cliche when they were developed, but there was a cliche that developed from them. This one has a certain amount of restraint that I think it inspired. You can see where it inspired some of those ideas, but it is cohesive and restrained enough that it didn't necessarily fall into that category itself, which is kind of interesting.
Okay. We didn't even talk about the design of the bike, which is sort of that nice mix of futuristic sci-fi stuff in the actual design of the bike itself, but then it's got all of these bumper stickers and brand logos on it, just slapped on top of it, sort of muddying it all up, but it feels very authentic.
Yeah, for sure. They have a Canon
Canon,
logo for
Citizen,
some reason.
Honda, yeah.
And also, so I'm on Amazon right now, so I'm looking at the next books in the series. And what's really interesting, and I really kind of want to look through your book, Todd, is that the edition you got has the relocalized translation. So I'd be interested to see if my problem with it feeling like a dubbed anime goes away with that one.
And I know the hardcover has like the original sound effects as well.
Yeah, sound effects and the traditional right to left. I don't have $180 right now, but it's definitely something I would love to invest in. But I do want to see if my quibbles go away with the relocalization. And actually, I'm going to probably go buy the movie again because the version I have is the VHS.
On Hulu.
Oh, it's on Hulu? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Well, that's what Just Watch said last night.
Yeah.
So.
Well, never mind then, because I have Hulu for $1 a month right now. So
cool. For overall grades, I'm going to go with an A-. Just like I think it's really, really great. I think the only real weakness is that it makes you want to read more of it. And there is a little bit of context issues, but yeah, and the main character are kind of assholes in the book. But Mr. Jason, what is your grade?
For me, it's still an easy A with Emma Stone.
Okay.
Hey, that's Clark's Hollywood crush.
Nice. Mr. Adam.
And you see your titties in the favorite. Which is a great movie, by the way.
For that reason.
And among other things. I'm with Jason. This is an easy A. This is a fantastic book. It's one of the ones that I kind of feel annoyed that I hadn't read till now, because obviously I'm in love with the anime. I know I should have got into it, but it kind of seemed intimidating. Again, for our listeners, this is a big book. There's a lot of books. You can be intimidating knowing that you have to read right to left, but at the same time, if you do get the American version, it's a typical graphic novel, and there's so much to unpack here, and there's so many metaphors. I mean, we dove in and spent 20 minutes talking about the basic ones, and I'm sure you could probably write a dissertation on everything running through the story, and I cannot wait to go read the rest of this. It's the one I want to hop onto and find out what's going on. So it's not quite Wicked and Divine level, but at the same time, this is a classic. This is kind of up there with like Watchmen and books you need to read. And honestly, new beginners can hop on. This isn't like where you got to spend 30 years diving in. You can if you want to, but you can enjoy it just as like even a new comic reader. So highly recommend it.
Yeah. Cool. Mr. Maya.
I'm at a B+. I liked it, and I really enjoyed the art, but I don't know, there's just, like I said before, there are a couple of things about it that didn't quite fit for me. Just like the pacing and that feeling of stuff might be missing because of the translation.
With the pacing, how much do you think it's due to serialization?
That could be, because I didn't realize until I was flipping through your book that it was originally published, like serialized through a magazine. And that very well could be where, every 10 or 15 pages it climaxes and then kind of goes back down again. So that I didn't even think of that. But still, for me, I'm at a B+.
Okay. And Mr. Todd?
Oh, it's an A.
Okay. Then that gives us a GPA of 3.8, which is just below an A. It's technically an A-, but so technically an A-, but I think is fair for what our assessments were on that. Does anybody have... Oh, see, so what are we doing next week? I don't remember what we're
That's
doing.
a good question.
What are we doing?
Yeah, are we like badass women writers? Is that what
We're doing women writers next week. We're starting next month, and I'm looking up the list real fast.
Good, because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I should probably write these down. A lot of them were books I hadn't even heard of.
Yeah, we went we went not necessarily obscure, but we dug deep. Okay, so first book is going to be called Through the Woods by I have it right.
Emily Carroll.
Yes. Emily Carroll. Then the second book we're going to do Becky Cloonan's By Chance or By Providence. Then we're going to do Kelly Sue DeConnick's Pretty Deadly, and then we're going to finish up with My Favorite Thing is Monsters.
What were we doing third? Pretty Deadly?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty Deadly, yes.
And what was the last one?
My Favorite Thing is Monsters. And only one of those books I have read before. So
Only one of those books I've heard of before.
which one is that
Pretty
one?
Deadly.
Oh, okay. Well, so Todd, have you read this? You've read Through the Woods, right?
I have.
Okay, so what are we expecting for next week?
So Through the Woods is 4 small stories unto itself. The most striking thing about it is it's graphic novels, right? But it's crazy graphic. It sticks with hard primary colors. The blacks are super blacks. The red is crazy red. And it's a little bit of Little Red Riding Hood and stuff going on through there, and the terrors of what the forest can be and growing up.
Cool. So that'll be next week. So yeah, next month we are doing Written by Women is the name of the month. Does anybody have any recommendations?
Yes, I do. So this was it's a board game called Sorcerer. I backed on Kickstarter like 2 years ago. Sorcerer. And it finally shipped. It's kind of a deck building game. Basically, you take the role of an evil guy trying to take over the world, and you're battling against your fellow sorcerers in London. But what makes this really cool is that you create a deck that's randomized based off 3 things. So you pick your character, you pick your lineage, and you pick your domain. So one game you might be Asmodeus, the Hellbringer of Egypt, or something like that. And then depending on the decks get randomized. It's really, really cool. This is actually a remake of a game that came out a couple years ago. It's utterly fantastic, though. The play is deep. It's fun. It's entertaining. The games don't last too long, and it's a really unique take on the whole deck building, Magic the Gathering kind of thing, because you'll never play the same game twice. So I think it's on pre-order right now. You can pick up the main game for like $40, I think, off like Miniatures Market. There are expansions out there. I got a bunch for backing it on Kickstarter. Some are unique to Kickstarter, so tough shit if you didn't do that. But it's really, really cool, and it's actually one of the top games on Board Game Geek right now. So check that out.
Okay, Mr. Todd, do you have
So I was
recommendations?
watching The Orville, which is thoroughly enjoyable, but the most recent episode called Sanctuary, I noticed, was directed by Jonathan Frakes, and it even has Deanna Troi as a school teacher. Nothing was focused on it, but it's just a little thing that made me laugh, because it's all these Star Trek references throughout it, and it's not Star Trek, but kind of is.
He directed either one or two really good episodes of Discovery this season and last season.
Yeah, I'm catching up on that, so...
I think he also did a movie called Clock Stoppers or something.
Cockstoppers.
Twats Waters?
Beaver Dam.
Okay. Mr. Maya, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so last couple of weeks or so I've been getting into the Arkham horror games that Fantasy Flight's been putting out. And kind of, they've built their own lore and universe around, Lovecraft's kind of Cthulhu mythos. I just got this book called The Investigators of Arkham Horror that is basically all the different characters you can play across all their different board games and card games, and it's like a backstory to each one, about 3 or 4 pages each, but it's this big hardcover book that's really cool, and I recommend any and all of those games and this book.
Okay.
You know what's funny, actually, is
Cool.
Arkham Horror 2nd Edition was my introduction to like adult board games, not in the sense that they're naughty, just that they're the intense,
Not Candyland.
And I actually really do want to go pick up Arkham Horror 3rd Edition because it's the streamlined version, because 2nd Edition would take 6 hours to play. So I've never actually played a full game.
Looking it up, I think I saw 3rd Edition takes 4 to 6 hours. So yeah, Streamline knocked about 2 hours off.
Yeah, and plus the 3rd Edition you can do one player too. So
Cool. I got nothing other than Sudafed. I recommend Sudafed.
No, you need to go get the good stuff and make meth out of.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks. Cool. So I think that'll do it for this week. Join us next week for Through the Woods by Emily Carroll as we start our month of women writers. And if nobody else has anything else, I think we'll put a fork in this one.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Please rate us on whatever service you listen on. And remember, at least we're not cinema queens.